I'm revealing stuff to people that nobody knows except for them.
Yeah,
And
you just did that, and I'm doing my best to keep it together. Yeah, that's challenging. This is the first time on this podcast that something like that has happened. So I don't know if you intentionally were looking to go down that road or not, but
No.
yeah, it kind of gave me like a sense of somebody who's on my shoulder. So thank you.
Yeah, you do. You if you want a little bit more information,
Yeah,
Al is with you.
no kidding.
What does it mean to plant your flag? It means you're not afraid.
It means you're passionate about what you do.
It means you're here to serve others,
In business, in life,
in good and bad.
you aren't afraid to fly your colors proudly because you know
You serve a greater purpose. This is the Plant Your Flag podcast with Mike Bean and Jeremy Mountain. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again here on the Plant Your Flag podcast. Mike Bean here from Bean Media Productions. We're super excited to be joined by Reverend Frederick Marschner, LCSWR, correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's correct.
And we want to dig into what you do because as we've spoken a little bit before, it's a bit unique, and it is an interesting kind of blend of two different businesses. So when it comes to planting your flag, that is really what we're looking for. We want to spread the word on how that happened, how other people can do it. Want to also remind everybody, if you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, follow, all of those good things. So once again, Frederick, thank you very much. And I'll let you introduce yourself because you're going to do a much better job than I am.
Okay, so I am Frederick Marschner. I have two businesses. Reverend Frederick Marschner, LCSWR, was an offshoot of Frederick Marschner, LCSWR. I graduated in 1997 from the University of Buffalo School of Social Work, and I've been working as a licensed clinical social worker since. I went into private practice in 2010, and then completely into private practice in 2013. So I was working full-time and part-time. And along the way, I started doing more with holistic types of treatments, and eventually started working with doing readings and healing using Reiki. And in 2018, opened up Reverend Frederick Marschner, LCSWR. So I became an ordained minister in 2017. In 2018, it was basically pushed into becoming an exorcist by my spirit guides. And let me see, how far back, I became a Reiki master instructor practitioner in 2004. So I've been a Reiki master for 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I have to sit there and think about that for a minute.
Right. Yeah. When you start to kind of play it back, it's like, it's been that long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You start thinking about some of what you've been doing and for how long, and it just kind of amazes yourself. So in terms of doing exorcism, I've been doing those for 7 years now. And I have a collection of haunted objects that I picked up along the way, objects that were causing people problems that they ended up giving to me. I'm able to manage them so they don't cause anybody problems, including me. It helps keep people safe that way. Let me see what else. Along the way, I became also a metaphysical practitioner. So in my clinical practice, that's what it is I do clinical counseling. I specialize in trauma. I have a history of working with addictions as well. And I was a certified alcohol and substance abuse counselor for 20 years. I retired the credential in 2020, but I still do some little work with addictions. And as you can see, I'm kind of going back and forth between
It's
the
got
two
to be a
businesses.
challenge, and we like to kind of kick this off with the reason why you wanted to go into business for yourself, why you wanted to plant your flag.
Sure.
However, I think because of the fact that you're doing multiple things, in there's probably challenges involved there. So there's so many things that I want to want to peel back the layers on so many different things. What side of it does get you most excited about these these different nuances of your professional life?
So I have to say, working in both businesses, they both have their challenges and they have their exciting aspects. So with the clinical practice, it's actually doing trauma work. I find it very rewarding to help people resolve the traumas that they have experienced. In regards to doing the metaphysical work that I do, obviously doing exorcism is it's a weird, wild ride. That's pretty much what I can say.
I can't even imagine what that must be like.
I've actually have gained a pretty good following, and it actually has gone kind of worldwide. I've helped people from Canada, Portugal. I had someone contact me from Spain. Recently had someone come in from Missouri to get help from me. They actually came to my office for help. And I had another person contact me from Peru, which I believe they're going to be coming to see me this summer.
Wow.
And so doing that type of work, am I, really doing this? Is this, what is this about?
Right.
And doing anything having to do with the metaphysical, it's actually, I'm just the conduit, the vessel that the spirit world is choosing to work through. So it's not me actually doing the exorcisms, and it's not me doing the healing. I'm just, like I said, that conduit for the spirit world to work through.
Right.
It's the same thing as working as a medium. I'm not giving you information. I'm giving you the information that like your spirit guides or your guides want you to have, or your family members want you to have. So that's not coming from me. It's coming through me.
Right.
In some cases, though, when I'm doing readings, for some people it may sound like I'm doing a little bit of therapy because that's what's being called for.
Yeah, and once again, like I said, there's a lot of different nuances to what we want to talk about, and we do want to kind of talk about that divide because I can imagine that has to be complicated. But when you brought up the exorcism aspect, that's very, very interesting, and I'm just kind of curious on how do people find you, and from all over the world, it seems like, to do this kind of work.
There's some word of mouth. So there was a person I helped. She came to me from Canada, and so that's how the person contacted me from Peru. The person from Missouri had been in touch with her, and she directed this person from Missouri to come and see me because, so it's starting off with this person in Canada, she was somebody I helped. And so she felt so moved by what my abilities were to help her. She's sending other people to me. And so there's a lot of word of mouth. Right. The person from Portugal was sent to me through somebody in New York City that they knew.
Right.
And so the person in Spain, I'm not quite sure how they got my name.
Right.
But it's somewhere along the lines. It was a word of mouth.
Do you get a feeling though when these people reach out to you? Do you get a sense that they're maybe like when you said just now, you don't know how they got in touch with you, but there was a reasoning behind it in the spiritual world?
Yes. So if someone reaches out to me and they're saying that they believe they need my help, if they believe they need an exorcism, or if they feel that they have some type of attachment, my guides will tell me if it's true or if it is not. So in some cases, doing this type of work, you have people that come out of the woodworks and they're going to try to make fun of you, or they're going to try to see if they can get over on you. They're going to try to prove you a fraud.
Right.
And so my guides are really good at keeping me safe from those types of situations. But I have to say, for the majority of it, 95% is true that people are needing help.
Right.
So the people reaching out to me, it's not easy for people to reach out and ask for help, counseling wise, let alone to say, I think I have something going on that I can't explain.
Right.
Because most people are going to think that they're crazy.
Yeah, and that must be a challenge in what you do because you're obviously passionate about what you do. You're helping people.
Yes.
I think you had mentioned too, when it comes to the exorcism side of things, you do that pro bono.
Yes. It's something I cannot charge for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something with the spirit world that to do the exorcisms, that's supposed to be free. That's supposed to be reachable by everybody.
Right.
It's how do you charge for something that really nobody else can do or nobody else is able to do. Now, everybody else that I know, or if I shouldn't say that I know, everybody else that I've heard of in the area
Yeah.
that says that they can do it, they're charging hundreds of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But then these people are contacting me afterwards after they paid this other person or these other people money.
Do you feel it's an obligation because you have this insight?
Yes.
And I think that's incredible. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of leads me towards some of the other questions that I have for you when it comes to, doing that work. Later, we'll get into kind of, talking about, I'm sure that you've seen, because we've asked this question on this podcast before, about what are some of the craziest things that you've seen, heard, been requested of, that kind of stuff. I'm sure your answer is going to be a little bit different than some of the other things. I mean, we had somebody on here who was saying that they were doing junk lugging, and they were brought in to take out an exercise room, like just like a bunch of equipment, an exercise room. It turned out to be a sex dungeon. So it unfortunately, the gentleman had passed, and it was his family that was just trying to kind of soft play it. But I can imagine walking into that's weird. I think you probably have seen some other things that are going to top that. Going back to some of the things that you were mentioning prior, and when we want to obviously tie this back to like business ownership, you had mentioned like the pro bono side of it. As a business owner, how do you justify that kind of ethical nature, that calling that you have?
So there's other things that I can, charge for. So if someone, wants counseling from me. So if someone has something going on that's metaphysical and they have some type of attachment, I remove the attachment. Sometimes that leaves residual experience for them. And sometimes it can actually be very traumatic. And so I can offer them trauma counseling. I can offer them metaphysical counseling. I can offer them, education and mediumship. Because oftentimes when people do have some type of attachment, they have mediumship ability. And so I let them know that they are a medium, and I can offer that to teach them how to learn to develop their abilities. I can teach them how to, if they have empathic ability, being an empath is, somebody is able to feel not only emotionally, but physically what other people are feeling. I can teach them how to lower the empathic ability so that to make it more manageable for themselves. So these are all things I can charge for. If someone wants to come in for healing, and I can teach that. I can either teach them Reiki, or I can do Reiki with them. That's something that I charge for.
So I don't know a lot about Reiki. Can you dive into a little bit more about
Sure.
what that entails?
So Reiki is a type of hands-on healing. And Reiki is actually two words, Rei being universal and Ki is like Chi energy. So we put the two together, it's universal life force energy. And so it is it was discovered or rediscovered in Japan in the early 1920s by Mikao Usi. The reason I said rediscovered is because they believe that initially it was something that was done thousands of years ago in India.
Right.
And so he was on this 21-day pilgrimage, and at the end of the pilgrimage, he had Reiki. And it was given to him. And then it found its way west. And so Reiki works on 4 levels. It works on the physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual levels. and it's said to work at the molecular level. So it can help people in all different ways. It's not uncommon for people to, if they have like emotional things going on, to have like, an emotional breakthrough while receiving Reiki.
Right.
I've helped people that have had chronic pain, and at the end of a Reiki session, the pain is either greatly diminished or it could be possibly even gone.
No kidding.
And I've had a couple situations where I've helped people with arthritis, and the arthritis basically, they went to another provider, and the provider was shocked to find that their bones were regenerating.
Wow.
In 2 other cases, I helped people with cancer, and the cancer disappeared.
No kidding.
So obviously, once again, that's not me doing it. It's the spirit world working through me to help whoever is coming to me.
That humble nature is so refreshing. The way that you present it. You present it in a way that it's I'm just doing what's kind of asked of me in these situations. But also it must be a little bit deflating because we did, kind of just brush upon the fact that not all of this stuff is widely accepted, whether it be in this country or other countries, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So, how is that? How do you manage, the fact that you're very humble, you're asked to be doing these kind of things. Some of them are free. And then at the same time, some people are probably calling bullshit.
Well, you know what? People are going to believe what they want to believe. And there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to change their belief if they think that I'm bullshit. They think I'm bullshit. And that's their belief. I'm not going to be bothered with trying to change their belief. Now, that being said, I do ghost hunting on top of, like helping people.
This keeps getting better. Yeah.
Okay. And so it's kind of like a hobby.
Yeah.
And so I'll take people ghost hunting to some of the local places I know to be absolutely haunted. And I've had people walk in doubting and walk out believers.
No kidding.
Yes.
And that has to feel good.
Yes. And, when beyond that, though, is, like I said, it's I have confidence in me. I know where how powerful the spirit world is. And at some point, something may happen to change those doubters' mind.
Right. And it's interesting the way that you present it that way, because you're not here to necessarily prove it to the world.
No.
You're, like I said, very humble about it. And I think that there's a lot of class to that. And then there's the other side of your business. And we didn't even get to why you felt that. Maybe it's because of some of the things that you've been able to do and some of the things you've experienced in your life, which kind of made you plant your flag. But is it because of the fact that you just kind of saw a bigger picture, maybe? And I don't know if it's a right fit for me to work for maybe some of the other places you've worked in the past?
Well, so that's a part of it. So around 2004, 2005, when I started actually believing that I could do mediumship. I had 2 friends that were mediums that both said to me, you can do this. Now, I'd always believed in mediumship. I just never thought it was me. And so then they both started teaching me. And so then it became, well, I don't think I can do this, to, wow, I can do this?
Right.
To then, wow, I can do this.
Yeah.
And
how long of a process is that?
So it's a lifelong process. So I'm still kind of in that process of learning, and to me, that's a part of life, is we're constantly supposed to be learning. And that's the meaning of life, is we're here to learn. So I mentioned in 2010, starting my own business, and I was working for agencies, and I'm not going to say which ones.
Sure.
And
I can respect that.
With New York State and all the rules and regulations that New York State puts on the different agencies and the policies, and that all of them have to follow, and the agencies themselves having their own policies, it became increasingly difficult to do the work that I want to do the quality of work that I want to do and still meet all of those requirements. And so when someone goes into private practice, yes, we still have to follow New York State laws.
Right.
Yes, we still have to follow a code of ethics. Yes, we still have to follow insurance standards. We have to follow standards for licensure. But the policy, but it's a lot easier. It's a lot less stringent than working for an agency. And that's why we're seeing a lot more counselors going into private practice, actually right out of school, directly into private practice,
Okay.
rather than go spend some time in an agency setting.
And you know, with some of the other things that you've discovered throughout your life, I would imagine that had also maybe been a challenge from working with inside of those kind of boundaries, those guidelines.
Yes. So I've actually, so here's an interesting story. I had someone contact me. They were looking for counseling. And at least that's what they were telling me. And so I sent off paperwork through an email along with some instructions, to be ready for the first session. And so I send paperwork ahead of sessions so that people can get the paperwork done rather than have to sit in my waiting room and do it. And so she showed up with the paperwork and, came into my office. I reviewed the paperwork. And one of the first things I do is, even after reviewing paperwork, I ask people, what's happening right now that you're looking for help? And she wanted a reading.
Oh, no. Okay.
And
Yeah.
she was told by somebody that I would give her a reading and that we would just bill her health insurance.
Yeah.
And
That's got to be challenging.
I looked at her and
Yeah.
I said, no,
Right.
that would be unethical.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, it can be at different times a bit challenging because sometimes people in my clinical practice will discover that, I have this other website where I'm a medium and I do all this other stuff. And so they'll come in, they'll start hinting around, to like mediumship and their own psychic ability. And I just sit there and I'll listen and I'll say, hey, how are you doing with that coping strategy I gave you last week? So I'll just try to do my best to get them back on track, because it would be unethical for me to do a metaphysical counseling session and bill insurance, or to do Reiki and bill someone's health insurance. Those things are not covered by health insurance.
Right.
Or to do a reading for somebody and, basically bill their health insurance.
Right.
It's completely unethical for me to do any of those types of things. And so where you do come in, though, with the idea of like, psychic ability. Everybody has psychic ability.
No kidding.
Not everybody has mediumship ability. Not everybody has empathic ability, but everybody has psychic ability. So psychic, the word psychic and intuition are interchangeable.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
So when you look at someone says their gut is saying to do something. Now I'll use a little bit of that, because the idea that, okay, I'm being led to ask further questions or probe a little bit more into this subject area. And it's all about, what is it going to be best to help the client in my clinical practice. Then it's about providing, cognitive behavioral therapy or aspects of DBT. I do a lot of, like I said, trauma work. So I use EMDR therapy. I help people build coping strategies, progressive counting. There's a cognitive processing therapy. That's another type of trauma therapy. Brief solution focus. So I use all of this clinical knowledge that I have to help them in my clinical practice.
You're right.
And so, but it, some days can be a little bit more challenging than others.
Because you probably have to hold some things back.
Yes. And so even when I'm doing metaphysical work or I am doing readings, I'm not sharing necessarily everything that I'm being told, because it could be harmful.
Right.
And so I have to pick and choose what to share with who. So I might do an exorcism with somebody, but not tell them that they have this like evil or demonic attachment. I may just say, oh, there was just this bad spirit that was attached to you. That's not every case.
Right.
In some cases, but in those cases, it's what is going to do, is if I tell this person, give this person this information, are they going to be harmed by it? And so I'm trying not to harm anybody.
That's amazing.
And so I'll just basically, I will kind of cut down the information a little bit so that the person gets what they need, they can get the help that they need, but they're not being harmed.
Right.
And to me, I'm here to help people. I'm not here to harm anybody.
And I can imagine that there's probably certain things that you can't divulge. But once again, that turmoil must be challenging at times. And I don't want you to call out any specific instance, but is there ever a time where you really feel that you need to say something because of something potentially might be going wrong down the road?
So sometimes I'll get information, say this, ask this person about their, thoughts about suicide. And so that's usually the case where they're directing me and telling me something that person isn't divulging, that they're having thoughts of suicide. And so in those cases, then, I will ask. I won't tell them where it's coming from, but, but generally speaking, people just think it's a normal part of the process. But it's important for me to, once again, I'm here to help people improve their life, not end it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's at the end of the day, and then get rid of the people who have, passed away and maybe still hanging around.
Yeah.
And there's two different ways I want to take this conversation right now. So I almost feel like you, where you've got two different sides. So one of the things that I wanted to ask was, do you think that there's a lot of people who are driven towards mental health who may have some of these abilities and maybe not even know it, and that's why they're very good at what they do?
Yes. So when you look at the idea of like counselors, there's a lot of people that get into counseling. Once again, they're helping people, and they do have mediumship ability. And so oftentimes what I'm just telling people is your spirit guide sounds very close to what your voice is. And so it can be really difficult at times to discern if it's your thought or the thought of your spirit guide.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so there's subtle nuances to that. And so if you pay attention, you'll grasp the nuances. So when I was doing, before I knew I was a medium, and I was doing counseling, I would have images pop up in my mind of direction to go. And so the client would be talking to me in a clinical setting, and I would have these images pop up in my mind, and I would respond to what those images were because I felt that was, okay, well, I got this number of years of experience, and this is how I'm just viewing things and what they're saying and how it's all being put together for me, and this is where I need to go next based on what they're saying. And I realized later that it was the spirit world helping me do counseling.
That's wild.
And
I love it.
I just was like floored when I figured that out.
Yeah. But did it resonate and make you buzz? Like how did it make you feel?
It can.
Yeah.
It can. So like now if I hit the nail on the head with something, I might get like tingly all over. I might get goosebumps.
Right.
So
yeah, that's is interesting. So when you talk about the mediumship side of it, you say it's not as common because everybody has some kind of psychic intuition, some psychic ability.
Yes.
How common is it for mediumship with how do you kind of discern between I think I saw something, I think I've got this gut feeling to like be able to speak to somebody from the other side, so to speak? So, and is it fair to say from the other side? Is that accurate?
It's from, you can say the other side, because it's the, where we are, it's just the human world. And then the other side, you look at from like the spirit world.
Right.
So, but they are a lot closer to us than we realize. And so oftentimes what people don't realize is when they're working on themselves, when they're, helping themselves be the best that they can be, whether it's through counseling or mediumship development or metaphysical counseling, or, if they're getting Reiki from somebody or some other type of healing, when they're working on themselves, they're bringing themselves closer to, they're raising their vibrations higher, where they're able to better connect, whether it be with their spirit guide, with loved ones, with the other side. So in my process, I'm constantly working on me. I'm working on me to, I'm a work in progress, just like I view everybody else.
That's
And-
refreshing to hear from somebody in your
Yeah.
position.
And I am not perfect.
Right.
And I'm a work in progress. I have my good days and bad days. I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else.
Right.
And, it's, some days are more challenging than others. And, and so I constantly working to increase my vibration levels, work through my personal issues that I have. And so the best way that I can tell somebody, let's say if anybody is interested in learning mediumship, the biggest secret is meditation.
Yeah.
So we can learn a lot in meditation. And so at different times in meditation for me, I get a lot of information. Other
Right.
times it's just really refreshing.
Right.
And it can help us physically as well as psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually to meditate. But in terms of like the spirit world, we are surrounded by spirits.
Right.
And just as there, we talked a little bit about that there is bad out there in
Right.
regards to like attachments and evil or the demonic, that type of stuff. But there's also angels and archangels, and there's our family and our loved ones and friends, and and our spirit guides, and the spirit animals that the animals that have passed on that are still around us. So like I see over your left shoulder, your spirit guide's waving at me. Yeah.
No kidding.
And then over on this side, so not everybody has secondary guides.
Really?
You have two secondary guides that are helping you with specific things that you've asked for help with.
Wow.
Okay. So, we're not going to get into what those are because
I'm starting to get the chills right now.
okay,
myself.
we're not.
Yeah.
So we're not going to get into.
Yeah.
So the one on your over your left shoulder here, that's your primary guide. It's been with you. That guide has been with you since the moment of inception until you die. The secondary guides that are over this shoulder, they will come and go as we need them. Okay.
Oh, so it's not as simple as just the. And I mean, all due respect, it's not as simple as the angel and the devil as we've seen.
No.
They actually
No, it's
can
not like
be
Animal
two.
House.
Right.
Yeah.
There can be two positive influences, and
Yeah.
is it
Or
typical
more.
that the one on the left will guide you through your entire life, and the one on the right will interchange?
Yeah, so
Or is it just
that's just
unique?
how I see them. I see,
Right.
that's basically, so what we do is when we're learning to be a medium, we have it kind of set up in a certain way so that it makes it quicker for us to read. So by seeing your spirit guide, your primary guide over here on the left, then I know that to look to your right to see if there's any secondary guides there. Do they have any information that they want to share with you?
Right.
That type of thing. And then beyond that is each of us have what I call a chorus of spirits that are around us. So there is, we have what's called soul groups. Each of us is from a soul group, or sometimes they're called spirit families. And we have members of our spirit family around us. And so spirit family could be people that are in your biological family.
Right.
They could be people that were friends. They in this lifetime.
Right.
They could be people that were, I'm going to say it, enemies.
Oh, no kidding.
Okay, that they were here to pose a problem for you.
Wow.
Okay, they could be spirits that you've never met in this lifetime. It's just basically
No
they're in your
kidding.
spirit family, but they're providing you support from the other side. Spirits also could be, members of our spirit groups could also be animals. And so there's animals.
It's the fact that I was going to ask you that next means I think you know what you're talking about. Because I was going to ask, it's like they talk about the Rainbow Bridge, like that kind of stuff. So those pet, lovers and, that they miss them dearly. They can stick around and help you out.
Yeah. So I have with me 4 dogs and
Yeah.
2 cats.
This is you.
This is me.
This is what you recognize.
And they're with me all the time.
Wow.
And so one was a dog that I had in this lifetime. The other was a cat that I had in this lifetime. Second dog was a friend of mine's dog, which was mine in a previous lifetime. She was just in my spirit family. And then the other 2 dogs and cat were from previous lives.
No kidding.
Was,
so you do believe in reincarnation?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tap into that at all? Like, can you kind
I
of
do somewhat.
kind of figure out who you were specifically?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've figured out some of my lifetimes, but I haven't spent a lot of time doing that. If someone asks me, if someone's in a reading and they're asking me about past lives, and I'm able to give them a little bit of information about some of their experiences as well. So, like, in terms of me, so each of us has actually 10 lives. And
which we can maybe get a sponsor for the 10 Lives Club, the cat group. But
so the cats have 9 lives.
Because there's a 10 Lives Club. They try to adopt out.
Okay.
So it's
Oh,
9
okay.
lives, and then 10 lives is their organization.
Nice.
But no, sorry to cut you off. It just kind of struck me as
that's
10
cool.
lives. Maybe there's something more to it that they knew than than I read on the paper when we worked with them a little while ago.
Okay.
So, but anyhow, please continue. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, that's okay. So we each have 10 lives, and once again, the meaning of life is to learn, and so we get 10 lives to learn as much as we can, and those 10 lives can be spread out over hundreds of thousands of years. Okay.
That's incredible.
And involve other planets.
Wow.
And, so like I've been told that my most recent life was during World War II. I was an Italian soldier who died during the war. And so you go back further than that. I was a Knights Hospitaller during the Crusades.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That type of thing. And so sometimes what happens for people is, different things, different events that happen to them during their lifetime can surface in this lifetime in regards to, we'll say, like anxieties. They can surface in regards to depression. So I had someone come in, and she was telling me about being shown something from her spirit guide, and it was related to how she died in past life. And it's something that, it's not something that everybody gets information on.
Right.
So it's pretty scary when you're being showed that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it's scary, but it has to also be uplifting to a certain extent, right? I would have to think that with some of those scary things, there's probably also a lot of positive things that you're able to share with folks.
Yes.
And beyond like the fact that you're able to, like I said, toe this line that has to be very challenging in like your business. But some of those positive things, how does that feel to be able to give somebody a message? Yeah.
Yeah. So oftentimes the messages that come through, when you're dealing with, doing readings, is that you're loved.
Yeah. Is that the most common, you think?
Yeah, I think I think that is, for me, it's the one that I think comes through the most common, is that the person is loved. That now that they've transitioned, that they're on the other side, they're whole. So somebody that was in a wheelchair, before they passed away is no longer in that wheelchair. So now they're standing, they're smiling, they're happy, they're content, they're at peace. And so it's a wonderful thing to be able to give people that information. I did a psychic party a couple weekends ago, and I was happy, actually pretty ecstatic, when a couple people walked into the room, and I was like, you got all your stuff is together. You're in good shape, and they were like, well, tell me about that.
Right.
And so it's refreshing to be able to tell people that they're on the right path with their life.
Right.
Because sometimes people need that type of reassurance that they're doing the right things.
Yeah.
And, and then so some other cases, I'm telling people, I'm revealing stuff to people that nobody knows except for them.
Yeah.
And
you just did that, and I'm doing my best to keep it together. Yeah, that's challenging. This is the first time on this podcast that something like that has happened. So I don't know if you intentionally were looking to go down that road or not, but
No.
yeah, it kind of gave me like a sense of somebody who's on my shoulder. So thank you.
Yeah, you do. If you want a little bit more information,
Yeah,
Al is with you.
no kidding.
Coco. Okay.
Interesting.
And two grandmothers. Give me a name of Henrietta as being one of them. And so
Yeah, I don't recall Henrietta, but then again, as you were talking about, there was different kind of, but the wheelchair thing kind of struck me. But anyhow, I'll pull it together because I'm a professional.
it's okay. You're entitled to have feelings too.
Right. Yeah.
So,
No, this is incredible stuff. I can imagine that there's some wilder things than what just happened just now. And we want to make sure that we kind of squeeze that in, because if we went through this episode, we didn't ask you what was like one of the things that really struck you as like a crazy story in business. I'd probably get shellacked by the editors. So,
okay. So I mentioned exorcism a few different times.
yeah.
That's probably like the craziest stuff that I think anybody could possibly be doing. And it's like, going with that and going to people's homes and some of those experiences and going into people's homes and a lot of times their homes are not in the best shape. And in some cases, they're close to where they probably should be demolished because they're in that bad of a shape. And the people are in that bad of a shape too. And so I've gone to different situations where if I didn't go, they would. There's a couple different situations where I was being told the person would be dead within a week. And so, and beyond that is I've gone into local hospitals here a few different times to help people.
Really?
One person, I was being told that the entity that had hold of her was going to kill her as it looked for somebody else to possess. And in the other, so that was just basically, they had broken her back. Actually, she had, the surgical steel rods in her back, and they broke the rods.
What?
And I had...
Was this like spontaneous, or it was like a fall, or?
She was sleeping. According to what she told me, she was sleeping, and then she couldn't move.
No kidding.
Okay. And so I was talking to a surgeon one time. He was a back specialist. And what he said to me was, it takes a lot of strength to break those rods and a lot of tension moving back and forth with the rod like this. So she slept through it, which is probably to her benefit. But, and then I actually went into a locked unit here in Western New York and
Right.
help somebody. And, there could be always tenuous of
When you
doing
say
something
locked
like
unit.
that. I mean, psychiatric
Okay,
unit.
yeah, that's right.
And I'm not going to say which hospital.
Oh yeah, no,
But
you're a
it's,
professional.
I went into a locked unit to help somebody.
Yeah.
And it's always tenuous because it's like, yeah, I'm not walking in announcing that I'm an exorcist, I don't want to get locked up myself.
Sure.
So that's
Because there is still some of that.
yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And so, but I went in as an ordained minister.
Okay.
My ordination got me through the door, and I was able to sit and talk.
Is that where the reverend side of it is? That kind of
Yeah.
by design?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so with being an ordained minister, it took a year and got my ordination. And it wasn't like I went and, got it from back of a comic book or a box of Cracker Jacks. I actually did work to get my ordination.
Sure.
So it does actually.
Because I know somebody who just did the online thing so they can marry somebody during COVID, like that kind of thing.
Universal Life Church.
Sure, I don't, but no,
Not that I'm knocking them.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
because they do serve a purpose.
Like Seinfeld. Not there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. But I think it's, that's a part of what gives me what I need to do in order to, like I said, to do the exorcisms, to manage the haunted objects, to, to help people in the way that I help them.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I mean that's where we started everything off with was just that calling. I think it's exceptional what you're doing, and I think the way that you have talked about balancing both, it makes a ton of sense to me now that we've kind of talked through all of it. When we talk about calling, try not to just go too thick on a pun here, but how can someone get in touch with you about either side of your business?
Okay. So my clinical practice is BuffaloNYCounseling.com, and my spiritual metaphysical practice is leadingtowellness.com.
And any advice to somebody who might be interested about both? Because you had already talked about a little bit of like the insurance side and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I do work with people in both, and so it's a basic understanding that when I see somebody in the clinical practice, that's what I'm seeing them for, and if they're coming to me for the metaphysical, that's what I'm doing with them at that time.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I do my very best to keep those things separate.
Yeah, and like I said, I give you a lot of credit for what you're doing, and I wish we could keep doing this for another hour because this is so interesting, and I love all of it. I love what you brought to the physical table, and what you're bringing, to the world. So, Frederick, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a true pleasure. And for everyone else out there, please get in touch with Frederick if you have any other questions. You know how to reach us. Once again, like, follow, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Plant Your Flag, presented to you by Bean Media Productions. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. This is a fantastic start. It's all kind of part of the process. So that's like a common occurrence. It ends up in like the outtakes of pretty much everything we do is me checking my flow. Just make sure the chair is good. Am I still in frame? All right, so I'm just gonna do a clap real fast. All right, 3.